So I think we can get started. So hello everyone, and good afternoon. I know this is after lunchtime, so I'll try to keep it short as well as I'll try to add as much demo as I can, so that we can make it as interesting. Okay, so the talk today is about the security automation framework. My name is Rohit Pitke, and I work with Adobe as a security engineer. So this is basically the open source project that I have been working with some of my colleagues and friends that are here. So we are gonna see why one more automation framework and what can you do with that. All the things that we are going to talk today will be completely open source, and I'll share the Git repo and everything so that you can try. Cool. So here is a brief agenda for today. So over 7 or 8 years that I have been working in security industry, there are different problems or there are different issues, concerns that are faced by your security organization. And many of them are related to the scaling the security because as you may know, number of security engineers in any organization is pretty low comparative to the ops or in general development engineers and QA engineers. So we are going to quickly see different pain that are faced by a team. And then as an answer to this, or in order to alleviate some of those concerns, we have come up with the security automation framework. So we will see how this automation framework was used by us in order to alleviate some of our problems. And you can also use that. And we'll have a demo for that, obviously. So here is one of the first important problem that most of you will agree, that securing your application when the development is happening at the scale is very easy. So just to give an example, I work with Adobe Document Cloud. Every day we have almost hundreds of commit in our repo. Every fourth night we have a release that is happening. And we have, let's say, 150 to 200 engineers working. Number of security engineers that do work in our organization are like 3 and 4. So typical jobs or typical activities that we want to do each and every day will actually to review what is happening, to perform the full-blown penetration test, then patching the system, helping compliance team, helping operations team. So since the development is actually happening at scale, what are we actually doing for the security? It's very much evident that the security, we are not actually scale the organization at that scale. So we'll see how we can actually alleviate some of this issue. But this is like one of the pain that is faced in general, in our experience by me, and many of you will echo that. Second thing is in the CI/CD pipeline. If you see, this is the typical flowchart of your continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline. People are constantly checking in their code in GitHub. Jenkins will pick it up, then it will build it. Now, one of the problems with security that I have experienced is lack of repeatable as well as reliable security tests. Now, there are a couple of reasons for that. The first problem is security testing requires a bit of the expertise in that, because the penetration testing is not easy. It takes a lot of dedication as well as time to perform that. Second thing is tests are not reliable one. If you consider the normal functional QA, people are doing the Selenium test and some other bunch of the automation. It's very much reliable as long as your baseline remains constant. With security, you have the network fuzzers, you have the web application security tools. Our friends have just demoed their Android application. Different platform is so big, different kinds of tools are present. It's very difficult to actually unify all of those tools and then shield all the complexities of running the tool, getting the report from the top level consumers. Now those consumers often a time is security engineers, and that is one of the problem that we have seen in the first slide, because then security engineers cannot really scale themselves because they have to actually spend most of their time in tactical things and they don't have time to think more strategic in that nature. At the same time, zero-day attacks are constantly increasing. Now, in our organization, we are making the very fast transition to the AWS. Now, people are actually spinning up the AWS instances almost daily. Some of them are test instances. Some of them are the instances they need for preview as well as staging. Some of the prod instances are constantly getting added. Now, when all these instances are added, the web servers are actually getting spawned into that. How will you make sure that each and every instance that in your infrastructure is free from the zero-day? Or even from the attacks that have been recently launched? Because sometimes you have to be just reactive to the 0 days. We have seen the issues where some of the test instances were not patched for the shell shock vulnerability, and then attacker just got that. There are many horror stories around that. This is again the problem because the security issues are coming up almost daily, and then with AWS and different cloud deployment, it's actually happening at the scale. It's very difficult to actually keep a tab on that. And fourth one is compliance. I'm not sure how many of you here actually work in compliance or actually talk to compliance, but believe me, it's not a good job because most of these auditors they need the demands are pretty convoluted. There's no offense to anyone. So most of these auditors are actually coming from the like non-technical backgrounds, so it's very difficult to explain the real security to them. Then in that case, you have to actually multiple secure compliances have the multiple controls like PCI will say you have to scan quarterly, FedRAMP will say you have to do it for every year, then other HIPAA and other compliances will say you have like a monthly review criteria and all those things. So actually performing them, automating them and storing it for the evidence purposes is often expensive because either you have to buy really expensive tools, you have to buy support from them. At that time, this is also one of the wounds that we have seen. So now, enough of the pessimism in this case. What are the different things that we can do? So in order to alleviate some of this concern or some of these problems, I've been working with my colleagues as well as a few friends to build something which can take away most of the trouble that are faced, and then we can actually focus on more strategic things or things that we love. And our answer to that was actually the security automation framework. So the security automation framework that we have been building is actually based on a few principles that we are telling here. The first one is it has to be the pluggable security tool repository. So Java developers here, you're aware of Eclipse. It's really easy to add any kind of plugin to the Eclipse. So the security automation framework that we are going to propose today, it should have that capability to add any security tool with a minimal ease. So our friends from LinkedIn, they just before this talk, they actually presented a tool for Android security analysis. This is one of the tools that they have developed. We have actually tried to integrate that with our security automation framework. You have a bunch of the open source tool. It should be very easy to add that to this automation framework. Now, why is that necessary? We have to shield out all the complexities of running the tool, and end user, who could be the security engineer, operations engineer, or general development, they should be just, it should be much more easier for them. It depends upon integration that you're going to build, but like running the tool, weeding out the false positive, then different tools are actually going to generate the report in a different format. All that should be shielded from them, and they should just get the very consistent experience. Then that will make the security tests are really repeatable and reliable. That's the concern we had. We want to actually address that as one of the principles. Second one is, so there is nothing new in security automation framework. You guys might be aware of Mozilla's Minion framework or Gauntlet framework. Now the problem that I have faced with this kind of framework is that they are not scalable one. They are more like a point and shoot on the single machine. We want our framework to be scalable one. Hence we have decided to make it server client based. I'll touch upon that point, what that server client really means. Third one is this framework should be available through REST API. Now that is really important one. I understand that everyone is actually in love with APIs. So everything, every part of framework, that is running the tool, uploading the tool, adding the new clients, scaling, compliance, reporting, everything should be available to the REST APIs. Fourth one will be auto update functionality. Now, right now, we are actually using this as one of the product in our organization, but many other products will also start using it. At the same time, if let's say any new open source tool comes up, I do not want all the instances of framework to actually spend their time and then upload that. It should be auto updatable, but within your environment, within your company environment. And the last point is, I know everyone is actually quickly transitioning or planning to transition to the cloud-based platform as service like AWS, Azure, and all those things. This kind of framework should be cloud ready. So we are actively working on making the AMI available for this, and it should be available whenever we get there. So these are the few principles of security automation framework that we are actually publishing today, as well as telling you guys. So enough of theory. I just want to quickly tell who can be the target audience for this, like a security engineers, DevOps, compliance, as well as build engineers can use that. I want to spend some time actually to understand the design of the framework that we have been working on. Now, security automation framework, the framework that we have been designing, has one controller kind of part. Let's call it as a server. Now, this is like a top level entity of the framework, which is always available. Now, server is exposed via REST API. So all the interaction with this framework is only with the server. So now the server can be owned by your compliance team, can be owned by your security engineering team, or could be by security operations. They can own that. Now, all this specific server is then talking to the different clients. Now, in this consideration, consider these clients as the different VMs that are capable of running some kind of a security tools. So consider a scenario where server is your launcher, and then all the other server is your controller, and all the clients as the launcher. And every client is capable of running either one or multiple tools. And these clients can be on a single machine, or they can be on a different machine. So typical deployment that we have in our case is we have the server in our control, and we have the different build machines that have our client running. So let's say if it is a CI/CD build machine, we have the static analysis running on that. If we need it for the compliance purposes, then we have the different network scanners running on that. For the mobile application, we have dedicated separate VM, and we have the static source code analysis on that. Now, all these clients keep talking to server. That is, from a server, all the clients are visible, and then from server, you will be able to execute all the commands, all the tools on that client. Client will run the tool, aggregate the report. Now, reports is one of the important problem of security tools. Like, some people will generate the tool in HTML, some of them have a JSON format, some of them will just spit it on the command line. Tool or our in general framework is actually capable of handling all this report format. All might be the exaggeration, I will say most of this report format, and then consume it in a form that framework understand. So though even let's say many of you might have used Nmap. So Nmap actually does everything on command prompt. So what our framework does is, once you actually integrate the Nmap into the framework, tool has a capability that it understands that the command line output is generated. It will actually parse it into the format that framework knows. The entire framework is written in Node.js, so it has to be in the JSON format. So the clients will actually get the JSON, send it to the server. Server will further process it. Now, all your analytics as well as machine learning algorithm, you can push it on the server, so that it could be the false positive reductions or different purposes. And on the server, you just get the unified view. So running the Nmap, running the SQL map, running SSL checks, REST scanner, static source code analysis has all been shielded towards the end clients, and on the server, you get the top level report. So your security engineers might be only working on the clients, while all the evidence as well as the report generation happen on the server side. So this becomes much more scalable. Now today you have three clients. Now if you want to add a couple of more clients, you will be able to do that. All of that will talk to server, and on those clients, you can install any number of tools as you can. So now let's say just like some small animation that if you say, if you tell to the server that, hey, run the tool. So just to example, you can tell server that perform the network scanning for my and this list of IP addresses. Server will know that, okay, this is the network scan that I need to perform. It will tell to the relevant client. Relevant client will invoke the necessary tool out of that. In general, we are trying to do it for open source. So we are using Nmap for that. It will run the Nmap. All the report generation actually happen on the agents that are sitting on the individual clients, and the report is then sent back to the server, so that on the server, you get the network scan of your application. Now this is tremendously useful for us in order to scale our in general security program, because then we are able to do the compliance related scanning for that, some static source code analysis, as well as the mobile applications are picking up, and people are actually coming up with a lot of good tools for static source code analysis. So tool by our friends at LinkedIn, this is one of the example. With this way, you can actually integrate it and then scale different your security organization, all with the open source. So you do not really need to buy expensive tools in that. Now, let's go into some of the technical details for that. So what are the components of this application? The first one is like a server. Server is like a central component. It is exposed via REST API. It's like a place where all the reporting, analytics, and all the things that do happen. And you have the multiple clients. Now consider these clients as the different machines, different VMs that are capable of running the security tools. So on the client, security tools are running, as well as our agent is running, which is administrating those kind of tools. Client is constantly talking to server, and only way to invoke any kind of a security tool is from the server to client. So this is the model in that way. And we believe that it becomes scalable one, because then we can actually add as many clients as we can. We can shrink them depending upon our use. And on the AWS, you have all the power of auto scaling. So it is much more easier in that way. Okay, now the new thing is, you guys will ask, okay, so right now we have given up, we have come up with a certain kind of tool. What if I want to actually integrate the new tool? So right now, your tool has to be the CLI based. That is, you need to invoke your tool through the command prompt. That's the first condition. Then you need to write some kind of a stub. We call it as a driver file to tell framework that, hey, I need to add my tool into your framework. And all of that is happening at the server side. So this is typically the JavaScript line JavaScript code less than 50 lines. You can just write the driver file. It typically tells that how to resolve the dependencies, how to run the tool, and how to parse the report. You basically write that driver file. Now, if you are interested in actually shielding out all the problems, you can actually write the customizable UI file. So we have done some work here so over the period, we have seen that, let's say, in order to run the tools like, let's say, SQL map or Nmap, you have a bunch of options, bunch of things to configure without which the tool will not work. Really, you do not need to expose all those things to consumers of your security tools, because then otherwise it's very difficult to scale it. So you can actually tell framework that, hey, this is the command for specific tool that you want to write, and this is the things that I want to take it from the UI. Rest all. So dynamically, we are actually generating the UI once we load that tool. And then you need to tell us that how the report looks like. Is it a command prompt, JSON file, it is HTML file, or how in general report looks like, so that we can then read from the report, parse it, and then push it back to server. So these are the 3 components that you need to write to integrate the new tool. Now this might look scary, or you might say that, okay, I need to write so many things, how can I scale? But you can actually fork our Git repo, and you will see that it's actually not that difficult. The total number of lines that you would write in this will be like 40 to 50 lines of JavaScript code, most of which is repeatable one. And we are actually working on auto-generating all these things for you, so that you just need to give the basic information and we'll generate everything for you. But I'll come to that in future enhancements. Now, let's go in a bit more technical detail for how the driver file looks like. The driver file is actually the zip format file with the 3 JavaScript files that are there. The first one is a driver.js, which tells the framework how to actually add that to the framework, then how to actually parse the report, and how the UI looks like. That's it. You just actually take the zip file, upload it to the server, and then you will be actually distribute it across your clients. So far, with the minimal efforts, we were able to do the Nmap, SQL map, Heartbleed scanner, SSL checks, our own REST scanner and cross-site scripting scanner, and we're actually working on embedding the Quark, the Android automation tool that LinkedIn folks have done. All right, so we have talked a lot. I know it is boring to actually listen without seeing the demo. So let's see the demo in that case. So here are the, I've tried to write the Swagger implementation so that the REST APIs are here. Now we are talking about the automation. I absolutely do not want you to restrict to the user interface that we have written, because then it doesn't become scalable one. You need REST API so that you can add it to your continuous integration, continuous deployment cycle. So there are the different REST APIs for server that are available here. Once you fork the repo, you will be able to use that. All right. Now here is a crude UI that we have been writing. We are not UI experts, so we don't know much. You basically start with the authentication to the system. Now right now, this is the server component I am dealing with. And as you see, I am actually talking to one client whose unique ID is 303. That is actually running as one of the Linux VM on my system somewhere. So now 303, this is the client that is constantly talking to the server and that is capable of running the bunch of tools. For example, like now let's say if I click on 303, it says that it has the Nmap as well as Heartbleed already installed on that. So we have already written the driver file, we have uploaded to the server and push it to that client. So that now this specific client is capable of running this kind of tool. Now we have done some more work in order to shield this client a bit, because many of you who have worked with Nmap, you need a lot of configuration. Now with this, we have decided that users of this specific tool only require the IP address. It could be single IP address or the range of the IP address. Now let's try to do that. I will try it on my local host. This framework has the capability to actually convert it to the relevant IP addresses and now pass that information. Now we are on the server side. We will be passing that information on the client, which is running on one of my Linux VM. And it is going to run the Nmap on the local host. It is going to process all that and send the report back on the server side. All right. So now UI is written by me. So and as well as my friend here. And we are not UI experts, so just pardon anything for the UI. Now it shows that we have actually triggered the scan. It is actually going to run the Nmap scan, and it is going to fetch the report back to you. Now it says that your scan ID is 24. Now let's see what happened. Hopefully it will generate UI for us. Okay, now this is the report that has been generated. Now what has happened was, from the server side, I have one specific client that is running, that is a client server model. It has bunch of the tools that is involved. Then from the server, I say that, hey, go ahead and run the Nmap on this specific thing. It has run the Nmap, it has parsed all the report, and it has sent it back to the server in the format that server really understands. Now, this is not specific to Nmap. You can pretty much embed any kind of tool. You can have multiple clients running at the same time. Now, let's try that. So now I'm going to actually invoke, now just for the networking purpose, I'm going to invoke one more client now. So now, let's see. So now once any new client is up, you need to map specific user to the client for the authentication purposes. Now you can see that the client 654 had just up. We have just started client 654. Now this is one of the client that is capable of running the security tools now, and which you can administrator from your server side. Okay, now map the user. Now you will start seeing the new client here. Now I have authorization to run one more client. Now let's say some 0-day comes up, some engineers in your organization, let's say, wrote some small script. Let's say for Heartbleed, they wrote the small script. You are using the framework. You just write it, and now you want this specific client to scan all your properties or all your hosts for Heartbleed vulnerability. You have already written the tool. Now you want to scan it. You want to scale it for all your domains available. Now let's try to do that. Now for 654, let's push the security tool. Now I will say push to the client. This is the client available, and I'm going to push the Heartbleed driver there. Okay, now the tool has been successfully pushed to this new client, so that now this new client, which itself is a new machine, is capable of running one more security tool. Okay, let's go here. It has Heartbleed driver. Now again, we have shielded the Heartbleed driver in such a way that you only need to give the URL here. Now after probably Heartbleed came 1 year before, right? Almost 7-8 months before. But there are a few properties that are still vulnerable to Heartbleed. So let's actually try them. This is I don't know who owns this domain, and I don't want to tell anything against them, but they're still vulnerable to Heartbleed issue. So let's run it. Okay, so now that means that this new client, this is now the completely new client that is capable of running the Heartbleed scan. So this will run. Let's see whether we got the report back for that. Great. So now see, the format of the report is again consistent one. You have seen the Nmap report here. You have seen the Heartbleed report. Now they are two completely different tools. They generate the different kind of output. But now with the power of the framework, we were actually make the uniformness in the reporting, And this is particularly helpful to scale your security organizations or your CI/CD pipeline, because if you in your continuous integration, continuous deployment, if you always get the results in a more consistent format, then it becomes repeatable one as well as reliable one. So if you see the Heartbleed scan was run on specific website, it was found to be vulnerable because it did all the scan. Now, running how this tool actually perform this kind of application, what kind of checks it is going to do, it is outside the purview of this framework, because as you can understand, the framework itself is tool agnostic. You should be able to add absolutely any tool to the framework. Framework should know nothing about the tool. That's why we just added Heartbleed, it ran the Heartbleed. We added the Nmap, it just got the Nmap running. So this is the pretty much what tool is doing. And now we'll go back to our PPT. That is again the boring part, but I wanted to mention a few things. Okay, now how actually you enable scaling with this kind of application? It's actually pretty easy. You just add one more client, push bunch of tools there, just like we have done. Recently, we just had a one client which was capable of running Nmap. We added another client, we pushed the Heartbleed into that. Now suddenly we have the two machines or two virtual boxes that are capable of running the security tools, and they will run it in the parallel. So it really helps. I have to write a tool only once, or I have to decide tool only once, then push it, everything will happen automatically. So this is actually taking care of scaling issues. Then how it is useful in CI/CD pipeline. As I have shown you, our server is actually exposed via REST API. So we have actually done this kind of experimentation. Whenever any new commit really happens, we have the bunch of the static source code analysis, as well as we have written a few scripts that checks for the certain kind of strings like unescape HTML inside our code. Whenever the build is ready, the build is actually on the build machine, one of our the script is running, and it is constantly talking to the framework. From our Jenkins then invokes the server API. It tells our client that is running to perform this check. Check is performed, report is given back in a consumable format. Much more repetitive one. We are actually keeping tab of each and every check-in that is happening with this. So security tests, you can add it to your CI/CD pipeline as your functional testing. So this is scalable in that way. Third thing is how whenever any 0 day comes up. So now in case of our product, we have like almost 120 external IP addresses, and we need to keep scanning them, let's say for the, and the problem is some of our applications use PHP in that way. So that's like, we have seen an issue that today we have patched the PHP, on the next day we have seen one more issue that comes up. So in this case, how do you actually scan all your external IPs for different 0 days? So again, we are using Nmap as well as Nessus for that. One of the client is actually capable of running the 0 day vulnerability. And so let's say now if it is a brand new 0 day, someone has written the script, someone has written the tool, you actually write it in the form that framework understand, push it to the server. From the server, actually push it to all clients, and now all your clients are capable of scanning for that 0 day vulnerability. Again, the scaling issue is solved in that way. Now, we have actually seen a pretty good example of this kind of issue. Now, we are migrating towards AWS very aggressively. And one of the things that we wanted to do is whenever any new AMI comes up, we want to check whether that AMI conforms to the standard that we want from the operating system as well as from the web server perspective. So we have written a small script. So we are actually taking the CIS standards. Whenever the AMI comes up, we actually run that script. That script, if there is any, it will scan it and it will send it back to the server, say that, okay, I have found this issue, image okay, image not okay. That it's pretty much easier for us. Then we can actually go and bug our ops people that, hey, this image is actually not okay, you have to patch it in that way. So this is like, this might not be specific to 0 day, but I'm sure that for the 0 day, you will be able to automate that. And the fourth one is compliance one. I have been stressing on compliance because I was burdened to talk to compliance over the years. So that kind of, as you can see, anger is there. So we have then a bunch of our clients that are capable of running the needed compliance controls, which involves like running some external network scans as well as running the baseline scans, all those things. We actually created the zip file and a driver file for that, allocated one UI for allocated one image for that, and every now and then we keep running it. So like compliance things are much more automated, and then the results are actually saved on the server, so we can pull it for the evidence purposes to show it to our auditor. All right. So far, we were actually able to create the driver file and automate like Nmap, SQL map, some of the baseline scan, Heartbleed checks, SSL checks, and then we are aggressively working on writing our own REST API scanner and XSS scanner. And then a friend of mine is also experimenting with the Quark so that can be added here for Android security scanning. Some of the other functionalities that I didn't quite demo you guys because they are not ready is auto update for our server. So now let's say you have the 3 server instances in your organization. If you write tool for, let's say there is some 0-day or you become very imaginative and you write tool for checking something, then you can actually auto update other server so that they will have that tool, and then you can push it to your entire organization. So that functionality is there, but we are actively working on that. With REST APIs, you can schedule the scan. We are using this for our quarterly PCI network scan. So what we do is every quarter we go ahead, we run our all external IPs with Nmap, Nessus, all those things, reports are saved back. And some of the monitoring capabilities, like I was mentioning the baseline scan, that is actually considered here. What it is not, it's like often a time people might confuse what this framework, what is really different here. But this is not the security tool in itself. So please do not confuse this with something that is aware of security tool. It has no information of security tool. So all the things like weeding out the false positive or resolving the dependencies or like some tools that are only invocable through the UI, it will be easy to integrate here. Second thing is it's not yet security monitoring tool. So do not deploy it as a monitoring tool per se. And it's not the commercial scanner. So we are here to help, but it will not have the promised support that you get from the commercial scanners. Cool. And here are the further enhancement that we have been thinking. Like one is the compliance specific setup. So if you are PCI shop or FedRAMP shop, we will load all the tools that are specific to the different controls. So you can just use that kind of module to automate your compliance things. More support for the tool is obviously the important thing. Everything is open source, but I'm gonna share the repo so that you can actually give some community support for that. Logging is not sophisticated, as you might have seen, that is needed. Any other thing that you might have, as we are open for suggestions. Okay, try it out. This is here. This is my Git repo. You can try it out, send a pull request. There is no licensing restriction. Feel free to use it as you want. Send us the comments if you need. And I think I pretty much wrapped up in 35 minutes so that we can have some time for question and answer, and then you can get free. But send me an email if you need any kind of help here in this case. Yeah. Any questions? If you have any questions, I'm here. Sure. Okay, so I'm here. If you have any questions, we can just, okay.
Is there a plugin for Maven or anything like that so you can automatically kick it off with a build?
Yeah, so we are actually working on Ant plugin for that, but for the Maven, I'll definitely consider that.
The other thing I'd want it to be able to do is to automatically fail builds if certain conditions are met.
Yeah, so if you can actually automate that kind of stuff, like you can write a script or something that checks whether the build is, you're saying once security checks are not there, you have to fail the build? Yes, that's precisely we are also doing. So in a Java, you can use the PWD and all those things. So whenever, in our case, whenever we see the words like unescape HTML and that kind of stuff, build actually fail. So the compilation actually successful, but we have one more round of check that happens that tells our CI/CD pipeline that the build is failed, and that triggers one more email. That first email says that the build is successful, the other says that the build is actually failed, and it has the result for that. That can be definitely possible.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. So I'm here. If you need any help, just send me an email, and we should be good. Thanks guys.